Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Ethan, Ihlo, Empire, brand new single from their upcoming album Legacy, out August 29th. That is later this week. Okay, so that actually, I just, first requests that come in are the first ones that go out. So I don't give favorability to any of this. And it just happens to line up on the right week. That's just phenomenal. All right, so we are going to check out some Ihlo today. We got 7 minutes in store for us. Let's dive in, see what they're bringing to the table today. Is that 7? Yes, it is. You got a nice 7/8 right here, with a lot of space between though, and that's what makes it a little unusual. I like the bouncy synth in the background. Really great drumming, certainly on the more rhythmic side of things, but has a melodic element to it. Yeah, nice little bit of flourish in there too. Not as a drum fill at the end of the line. It's in the middle of the idea. So interesting, that section is 4/4, but we alternate between groups of 7 and 9 for a 16 beat idea. So you still feel that 7 originally, then it feels like it's extended the next time through. Nice volley rhythm there. The vocal production was really nice to bring in a sharper edge to that. Once again, the synth texture really sells this section. I love the expressiveness of the vocal melodies here. I was gonna say, I felt the drums were gonna pop off with the intro to that section. Oh, the ghost notes on the snare. Did I miss that last time through this heavier part? The little run, but also the poppy expansion with all of the vocal stacks there. Yeah, dude. So many good little patterns there in the last like 20 seconds of drum work. So this is neat because it's sort of ending on a wistful hopefulness for the future. Looking to the past to return. How is that? It's not a return to the past. How would. So there's a lot of emotions going on in here. I want to touch on those before we head into individual instrumental elements, a more technical read on the song. I want to stick with something a bit more subjective here. The song is kind of all over the place, and it does that emotionally by trying to pair a bunch of different emotions together, by viewing these different emotions in different parts of the song. I will say that the way that the song kicks off, that sort of, it's two chords that they're sort of doing this genty rhythm over. I don't really feel too much relationship to those chords. They just seem to be pretty standard metal chords. But it's interesting because usually after bouncing back and forth between these a couple of times, we'll jump to another two chords to bounce between, and these are interesting. There is a wistfulness to them. There is a pain to them. Maybe not a tad bit, just a little dash of sorrow in there. It seems to be the feelings of losing something of the past. Maybe it's memories of a better time, knowing that you can't have those memories back. Maybe it's an era. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's the way a person was. Something along these lines. About losing something that was good or precious to you, and knowing you can't have that again. I find it really interesting that stands out to me because the other half of that riff doesn't. It's just generic metal at that point. And I just kind of expected at that, at the beginning of the song, good genty riffs going on here. The rhythms are tasty. they're going to build a really cool song off of this. And I didn't expect it to be emotionally engaging for me. And that's, later on into the track, I had mentioned that the vocal melodies are rather expressive. I love what the vocal melodies do on top of the chords they're given. When it comes to a key of a song, the key dictates what the core notes are going to be. The chords themselves are then built from those notes. Not every chord is going to have every note of the key, and it's what allows several chords to still be in a key, but for those chords to have different properties so that we can have a story across the progression. Now, there really isn't what I would call sad chord progressions. There's certainly ones that can go in that direction, or happy chord progressions or angry chord progression. You can certainly create progressions of chords that feel like those emotions, but in order to really pull that sound out, you're going to need the melody, and the melody is going to play the notes outside of that chord. Like I said, the chord's only going to be 2 for a dyad, 3 for a triad, maybe 4 notes of the chord. In metal, anyways, once you get into like classical, you can have, massively stacked chords, and you can create all the nuances and characteristics in the chord itself. But in rock and metal, we tend to work with 2 to 3, sometimes 4 note chords. We do have 6-note chords occasionally on guitar, 1 on each string, using a lot of open strings usually, but that's a bit rarer in especially this kind of metal. So in order to get the rest of the coloring, the rest of the spice in on this flavor, it's going to depend on the melody that's accompanying the chord. And that's where the vocals come in for a majority of this track. We do hear the guitar give us a couple of lead melody lines on this, but the vocals cover this a majority of the time. And when I say that they're expressive, it's the note choices. As a melody, you could very easily just play the notes that the chord is playing. It's going to sound fine. You're going to have a lot of consonants and strength of note intervals in there. It's going to be very stable, assuming that your chord itself is stable. But if you want to get spicy, you got to bring some extra notes to the table. And sometimes those notes are going to be in the key. Sometimes they're going to be outside of the key. And that's usually where jazz likes to sit. Anytime you hear a note or a chord, and then you hear the melody bring in something like, ooh, where'd that come from? Usually pulling from outside the key. Jazz does this a lot, very spicy stuff. The vocal melody here is very expressive because of which notes it chooses to add to the keys that are currently being played. And this pulls out and draws out so much of the emotion in this song. These melodies are the ones that really lead into this feeling of loss, this feeling of sadness, this feeling of wistfulness for the past, a longing, but also at many times a hope for the future. And this is really interesting too. There is optimism to a lot of this. Optimism and wistfulness, they're interesting. Usually a song would do one or the other because it's very difficult to hope for the future by looking towards the past. Most of the time when we want to get out of where we are, we want to improve things. Usually looking back to the past, we're unimproving things. We have hopefully grown from where we were at one point, and we want to continue growth. So I find that to be a really interesting thing here because they're not completely incompatible, but they're just not usually paired together. And I find that to be an interesting quality to this song emotionally. And we hear that right at the end. A lot of this song is about this is a wistful section. This is, a hopeful section. And then we do have those 2 heavier parts where between the lower guitar choices and the grittier drum work and the vocals kind of, I don't remember what happened the first time through on the vocals. They weren't screamed, but there was some distortion to them. It might have been production side of things, post-production put on it. Might have been the way layers were working. Anyways, it got very gritty, dark, aggressive. It got angry. So the song goes through these moments. There is the wistful moment, the the optimistic moment, the angry moment. But there at the end, I think the guitar solo does a fantastic job of capturing a hopeful wistfulness, bringing two opposing ideas from earlier in the song together as one. And I find that to be really interesting because the guitar solo felt familiar to me, and I wonder if maybe the vocals had already done this melody or a variation of this melody earlier in the track, and I just didn't catch on to that duality of it yet. Makes me want to give it another listen and see if there is that little bit of callback going on. But yeah, that's the emotional resonance for me on this track, and it took me a little bit to get into it. I caught some interesting choices, but I focused a lot on rhythm and atmosphere up into the middle of the song, and that's when the emotional part really started to click with me. And I started to engage it on that level, and I found some depth to it that I wasn't expecting. On the technical side of things, this thing is metric. It's djenty, progressive metal kind of stuff. Syncopated rhythms are all over the place. We also have fun time signature stuff. Most of this song is written in 7. Whether you want to read that as 7/4 or 7/8, it really just depends on how long you are feeling the patterns and how long or how slow, I suppose, the song feels to you. If you may have noticed, I had a bit of a slower beat going on. This was the 7/4. If you double time that, you're going to get the 7/8. And 7 is interesting because eventually we do reach 4/4. If we have 4-bar phrase, a 4-bar phrase, with 4 beats in each bar, that's 16 beats for a phrase. Normally, you would chunk that into an 8 and an 8. You keep the symmetry going, but here we chunk it to a 7 and a 9, and this threw me off initially because I have been used to 7-beat patterns. This whole song is written in 7, so I hear another 7, and then I'm ready for the next one, and I get to 7, and it keeps going. Why does it keep going? How far did it go? Where was 1 here? Did I miss it? Was there an extension to this? It turns out there is. In essence, we have a 7 and a 7 and a 2. We have a 7 and a 9. This adds up to 16. We are in 4/4 here, but they're playing it asymmetrically, leaning into the 7 that we're already expecting, and then throwing the curveball at us when they give us the 9, that 2-beat extension at the end of the next one. This is very cool because it weaponizes 4/4 against the listener. We're not used to hearing 4/4 asymmetrically, but we are used to hearing the 7. So they take our preconceived notions of what we expect the groove to be and put that into 4/4 without telling us we're in 4/4. And they give no hint that we're in 4/4 because the general symmetry and palatability of 4/4 is missing here. It's a very neat trick that I liked quite a bit. And I might be overselling how cool it is because it's kind of a nerdy thing for it to be this cool. I think if you just listen to this as an average listener, it's just going to be like, oh, that's a neat little thing going on there. But from like a musical perspective, I really enjoy all the layers that went into that decision, or at least what I assume went into that decision. Aside from the literal meter of the song, the time signature, we also have really funky rhythms going on in here. We have polymetric ideas. Do we have, or is it, I think they're just polyrhythmic, actually. I don't think they cross bar lines. We just have dual rhythms happening in places though. And of course, aside from the drum usually having one instrument, one part of the drum kit giving us a solid beat and giving us a bit of a pulse behind everything, almost every instrument is dancing around the backbeat of this song. They're all syncopated against the core downbeats. The core tempo of the track. And that's what makes it so groovy. That's what gives it the djenty sound. I mean, that's kind of Djent's thing right there, is heavily syncopated rhythms. And we get these in the verse. We get these in the chorus. We get these in the bridge. I hope you like Djent because that's what they're doing here. Now, I do like the melodies that sit on top of this. If this were just purely the rhythms and like harsh vocals, it probably would have bounced off of me. But as usual, like I've said many times before, gent is a spice for me. It's got to have something else. And while instrumentally this is a lot of gent, the vocal melodies help me kind of get through that and latch on to something else in here. But the rhythmic side of things on this is nice. It's cool. It's groovy. And if you really pay attention to some of the rhythmic things, I think you'd be impressed if you tried to transpose some of the rhythmic ideas and seeing what kind of compositional elements are going on there. That's a bit more than I could do on a first time listen. That's something I would need to sit down with some sheet music or like MuseScore and jot out while I'm listening to it. But I did find that there were some really cool elements here, particularly with crossing ideas over bar lines in order to extend outros and move the rhythmic cadence and syncopation into the beginning of the next pattern. And that helped drive between sections because while you're listening to this, what sounds like an extended rhythmic element at the end of this phrase, the music is shifting behind it. And that's how they handled a lot of their transitions on this track. And it works really well. It's sort of a sleight of hand technique where they tell you to focus over here while they're changing things over here. And it works because otherwise I think some of these transitions would be pretty harsh. The last thing I want to bring up is just the vocals. Absolutely wonderful. And this is what really brings the poppy-ish element to it, alongside the synths that are happening as well. It's all of this high production stuff. The vocals are clear. They are crisp. Dude, they are crisp. Same with the drums, actually. The guitars have a lot of punchiness to them. They're very clear in the mix as well. Same with the bass at the bottom. I haven't brought the bass up much, but they do a lot of what the bass kick does and just kind of fill out the low end with this unified stacked sound. But the drums are very crisp, very clean. They sound phenomenal. The vocals sound great though. The natural production, the post-production stuff, the software side of things, really crispening them up, making them pop in the mix. I love the little vocal runs at times, a very poppy touch in a metal sound. The vocal stacks that we got in important moments of the vocal melodies. I don't know if those were done for a musical purpose or if they were done to emphasize specific phrases. Regardless, another poppy element, and it just really stands out to me. I love a dash of pop in my metal, and this ends up working really well for me. And when you mix that with the expressive vocal melodies that we've already talked about from previously, you get something that really works for me personally of creating this almost background sound with the instruments. Not to say that there's nothing of import to what the guitars and drums are doing, but they do certainly create a foundation and atmosphere for the vocals to reside in, which is also another poppy idea. To kind of bring that pop aesthetic of vocals first music into this. But as I mentioned, the guitars are punchy, the drums are crisp. You can't ignore them. They're not pushed that far down into the mix. There's just a little bit more emphasis put on the vocals here. And I mentioned a couple of times in the reaction itself, but the drummer is so tasty. So tasty, dude. So many great ideas. The polyrhythms, the ghost notes on the snare in the bridge, the little semi-melodic ideas at times, the workups into the fills. It's the drums do so much to guide the listener through this song to add that extra rhythmic layer on top of what the guitars are doing, and it's so well done. I've probably missed something that I want to talk about, but I can't think of any other topic I want to bring up. Shout out to the guitarist and vocal and the bassist too. Phenomenally played. Let's hit some lyrics. Interestingly, there's not a lot of a wistfulness in the lyrics. Anytime that we reference the past, it's more of a sorrow that the past still looms so largely over us. Verse 1 says, "When the golden hour fades, will we build up from the ground?" Says that all will be left to ruin. The ancient ages are breaking down. So everything that's come before us, as large as the shadow that it casts, it's not perfect. It's built on shaky foundation. There's crumbling in the infrastructure of itself, and it's going to break. And when it does, are we going to build things back up, or are we just going to replicate it? The chorus says if we keep on pretending to live under the shadow of the gods, it'll bring us to the edge of ascension. So instead of becoming gods ourselves, we will just continue to be under the shadow of people who assumed that they were gods. And it will bring us to the edge of ascension. I think that's the really great part there. We will be able to see an enlightening, a heightening of presence, of life, but we won't be able to reach it. We'll get to the edge and that's it. That the history in our past will hold us back if we don't fight for the future. The post-chorus, though, says, I know that the cost is too great to change. That letting go of the past is a big ask for a lot of people. The bridge, though, the bridge says we should just do it. It says that we need to pick apart our brain and our bone to feed our egos, building it up and breaking it down, replicating dying dreams of ancient empires and falling kingdoms. They're all left to burn and the dream is falling apart. There's nothing left to save. It says that basically we have time and time again tried to replicate things that have failed in the past. Why do we keep doing this? Why do we replicate the dying dreams of ancient empires and falling kingdoms? There's nothing left to save from them. Let them burn. We'll build back up anew. I love that. Verse 2 says, every inch we gave away to them, we sold for lies in the light. Can there ever be an end? Can we move beyond these aging hands? Basically saying here that we've been manipulated, that we still think that this is the way to do things, but it's not because of our own thought processes. It's because we're not working with all of the information that we need in order to make good decisions. The second chorus has a little bit of a change to things. Instead of saying bringing us to the edge of ascension, it says brings us to the age of darkness where we thrive. And I think that's interesting too. Humanity has thrived when they are at their worst and has consistently, in the worst of times, found a way to come out of it the other side and improve things. And I think that's what he's focusing on here, is that if we let go of the past and allow it to crumble without the weight of it on top of us, yes, we do need to work from the bottom. We have to completely build a new system from scratch. That's a pretty dark time. That means everything has crumbled around us. All of our infrastructure is gone. But we do thrive there and we will make something better out of it. So there is no wistfulness to this. I'm curious. I want to go back and listen to it again and kind of interrogate that element of the song and figure out why I heard that and figure out the parts where I felt it and see if maybe that's still what I feel or if maybe there's something else to it. Maybe it's not a wistfulness, but just a general melancholy. A melancholy about the past, but not a longing to go back. This song, though, is about letting the old go and building up for the future instead of building up to make the past look great. And about saying, what if we stop supporting the old ways and make something that works for us today? Yeah, I like it. I suppose that's where the hopefulness comes in on this too, a bright future that I felt towards the end of the song and in parts like the chorus. These are my thoughts then on Ihlo's Empire. What did you get out of this though? Did you enjoy it? Is there anything in here that stood out to you? Maybe something that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own opinion on parts of this song. Please put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 9 p.m. UTC. I don't know why I blanked out on that. As usual, that's every day except Sundays. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.